in young children's brain development, it's use it or lose it. So when all these neuronal connections are being formed, if they're not practicing certain things, if they're not using certain parts of their body or having certain experiences, those neuronal connections aren't going to be happening. They're going to get pruned away. So if they're not using their fine motor skills, their gross motor skills, if they're not getting to have conversations with people, they're not going to have as robust brain development. And Dr. John Hutton, who had previously been at Cincinnati Children's Hospital and is now in Texas, he did functional MRIs of children's brains, hearing books 3 different ways. And he calls it the Goldilocks effect. So he found that only one of the ways he exposed young children to, stimulated multiple parts of the brain and connected them effectively, creating that wiring in the brain we talked about that's necessary for reading and writing. He exposed them to an audio book, a book read to them by a screen, on a screen. So the screen was reading the book, so it was print, it was pages turning, etc. And then a real book read by a real person. And of course, the one that stimulated the brain appropriately and made those neuronal connections was the real book read by real people. So he also did functional MRIs of young children's brains who had had more screen time or less screen time. And those who had had less screen time had better developed brains. They had more white matter in their brains. That's the myelination. That's the sign of all those neuronal connections and that wiring. Those who had had more screen time had less well-developed brains. They had less myelination, less white matter. So we want to limit screen time, use it as a last resort. There's a role for technology to play in our lives, for sure. But you want to control it because you want it to serve your family's purposes and your child's development best.
You want it to be a helpful tool, not something that causes problems in the long run.
And you want them to be exposed to programming or that's going to help extend their attention span, their self-control, their social emotional development, promote their curiosity. So I recommend PBS Kids. You know, if I'm going to tell anyone to use a screen, like that's what I would recommend. We have other resources on our website. There's different museums locally and I'm sure nationally that have videos, and even nature centers for children. And those can be effective. But pair it with reading books about different topics, because you want to feed your child's curiosity. So if you read a lot to them, hopefully they're going to get interested in different things, and then you can go to your library and you can get books, nonfiction books out, information books. So don't just read picture books, but you can put a boundary on some picture books and get information books, especially as they get older, and then read chapter books or novels to them as they get even older, books that are a little above their level. Keep reading to them even after they've started reading for themselves. Well into the upper grades, you could keep doing that, because that's bonding time between the parent and the caregiver and the child, and it promotes that strong bond, which promotes resilience in a child. Put a boundary on stressing out, though, about reading to your child. So say your child is really resisting you reading to them. You know, if it's becoming stressful, don't push it. But what you could do, say your child is playing nearby, you could be nearby reading a book aloud, and they're playing, you're reading one of the books to them, they're going to be listening, they're going to be absorbing, and eventually they may make their way over to your lap.
Or they'll look up.
But you know, that's okay, but also interact with them, let them turn the pages, let them be involved in reading the book. And Dolly Parton's Imagination Library purposely sends board books to infants, and these sturdy sort of waterproof books to toddlers. So let them handle it, and if they make mistakes, like if they're tearing the pages or they're chewing on it, you know, you can teach them how you want to handle a book. You want to catch them being good. You want to praise their efforts, but also try not to get too stressed out about it. If they're, you know, show them how to handle a book respectfully, but don't expect too much of them at too young an age, because that's how they learn. We all learn by making mistakes, right? Or by interacting with things and from
One
experience.
One of our most treasured keepsakes from our kids' childhood is a very hungry caterpillar, and it's like nod in the corner, just kind of nod right there, and it's like, yeah, I don't know which one did that, but
Right.
you know, that was a beloved book in our house,
Right.
and yeah.
So okay, so those are the screen times are boundaries.